This is an A to Z look at every single alien and human customer in the Mos Eisley Cantina, before the special edition, of course. This group of 56 or so entries makes up the entire contents of the original Elstree Cantina shoot in London. Basically, this section is meant to be like an encyclopedia, a who's who of the Cantina, and I hope that you enjoy it. If you do enjoy this kind of thing, then you were probably that one kid in every class who liked to sit around and read the dictionary. Each entry will begin with a look at 6 important categories. Number 1, species. This one is like it sounds like. Number 2, production nickname. Most Cantina customers had a name or names that the artists and crew referred to them by, some lovingly, some not. Number 3, name origin. This one is interesting because up until this point, we haven't really referred to any of these guys by their official names, and you'll be surprised at the way that many of these names came about. Some aren't even that official and were just sort of adopted into the canon by default. There are a few sources for these names that will keep popping up as we go along, so here are 3 that you should know. The 1978 memo. This document was first mentioned in an article on the official site in 2003. It is a memo sent from Lucasfilm to Kenner Toys, dated September 13, 1978. Kenner had only just recently, belatedly, begun cranking out Star Wars action figures and, as they had struck pure gold, were eager to produce more characters. In their zeal, they sent word to Lucasfilm requesting the names of the characters in the Cantina. Unfortunately, what they got back was mediocre and rushed, and it's really a good thing that none of these names became permanent. Otherwise, we would be referring to the Cantina band members today as Sickmoo and Walrus Man as Rustwall, which of course is just a reversal of the syllables of the words music and walrus, which is just weak and embarrassing. The Star Wars role-playing game. This game was created and published by West End Games, who published over 100 books and modules beginning in 1987 and continuing until they lost the license in 1997 or 98. In their publications, specifically their Galaxy Guides, they were among the very first to go back and assign names and races to characters we only got fleeting glimpses of, but wanted to know more about. The Star Wars Customizable Card Game, or CCG, was published by Decipher Incorporated and was produced from 1995 to 2001. In the thousands of cards that they published during those years, they created names for scores of background characters and aliens that even West End Games had skipped over. Some of these names turned out to be sneaky references too, as we will see. Okay, returning to our list of 6 important categories for every entry. Number 4, designed, sculpted by. Number 5, actor. For both of these, specific details are not always available 100% of the time, and sometimes even the official sources are wrong, so we will do our best. Number 6, action figure. Just as it says, we will show you if an action figure has been produced for the character in question. You would think that in over 40 years of toys, at least all of the major aliens would have been addressed by now, but you'd be wrong. Lastly, one final word before we dive in, and that is on the subject of pronunciations. Keep in mind that some of these names have never been spoken aloud in any official Star Wars media, and never will be. Therefore, they are subject to the ear of the beholder, so your mileage may vary. I am going to be attempting them, but give me a break here. There are going to be some doozies. Athelo. This alien can be distinguished from his counterpart because he does not wear a neck scarf. Another way to distinguish him is that Athelo is completely bald on top of his head, while his counterpart, Onelco, has short, curly hair, much like the snaggletooth named Takil. It's interesting to point out, but apparently for the aliens made by Stuart Freeborn's crew, it is customary for all species to dress alike, as we will see. This mask was apparently minorly redressed and used in the Star Wars Holiday Special and made into the character Salamahal. It was also used as a background alien on Cloud City named Triva Horm. Ponda Baba. Parts of StarWars.com points out that the famous jackets used in the first film, worn by Walrus Man, Ceremonial Luke Skywalker, and others, are actually British racing jackets that have been dyed and modified. You can see a photo of the actual jacket that Luke wore at the end of the film at sciencefictionarchives.com. They go on to explain that Walrus Man's blaster pistol was made from a rifle, an AR-7 Explorer, manufactured by Charter Arms. The assembly from a British mortar shell was added to the barrel, as well as a scope. Apparently, the prop weapon never had a finished handle, which was probably because the actor was wearing the pod-type alien hands. The mask was later freshened up and used in the Star Wars Holiday Special, and again in Return of the Jedi as a background alien for Jabba's palace. It was displayed in 2014, looking rather rough. Chal Bakan, or Beacon. No photographic proof exists that a second Plutonian costume was ever made, so included here for completeness is this character invented by Decipher for the Star Wars customizable card game. It is indeed true that this alien appears to be in two places at once the way the scene is edited, but as the scene took several days to film and the actors tended to move around, it is actually Nabran Leeds that is seen twice. Mosep Benid. There are two of these aliens in the cantina and also seen wandering the streets of Mos Eisley. They have completely different hair. This alien's hair is white and he sports a top knot. This mask was also used again in Return of the Jedi in Jabba's courtroom, where it's been decided that it's one and the same character. As for action figures, Hasbro released an excellent one in 2015. Boalo. You can see this guy's pointy hat in the background of the cantina, but we have to turn to the Jabba the Hutt scene from the special edition to get a complete look at him. He is one of Jabba the Hutt's 3 human henchmen, so we will put him in the category of pirate. Dan's Borin. There are indeed 4 spacemen in the cantina, and this is the only one that we can see up close for a brief moment very early in the scene. This is also the only one that we can tell is really human. John Mallow's chart called for 4 spacemen and 3 star pilots, and instead of constructing costumes, the crew apparently used what was available. We will discuss this subject further with the later spacemen. Dan's Borin, whose name, as many of Decipher's, must be an as-yet unsolved anagram, is actually wearing a spacesuit from the 1971 film Escape from the Planet of the Apes, as does one of the 2 Duros, although these spacesuits were actually made for a Jerry Lewis movie called Way, Way Out in 1966, where they were silver. The helmet is unidentified as of yet. Boshek. Boshek is an important character because he is the person who refers Obi-Wan to Chewbacca. Strangely, for a visible minor character who performs an important function, the actor's name was lost to the general public for decades. We should probably put him into the group of 3 star pilots that are listed on the John Mallow chart we looked at in Chapter 1. But who are the others? This gets difficult because the line between that category and spacemen can get a little blurry. Now let's talk about his spacesuit. If it looks familiar to you, it should. It is a Windac high-altitude pressure suit used by the Royal Air Force in the 1960s. In fact, in the very same cantina, Spaceman number 2 that we're going to look at later is wearing a yellow one, which will later be the costume for the bounty hunter Bosk. For a while, these suits were popping up in science fiction films of all kinds, and there are many examples of other colors in the original Star Wars trilogy. In the Power of the Jedi line, Hasbro made an excellent action figure of him in 2001. Bureaucrat. The bad news is we cannot see this person very well, but the good news is we now know who he is and what category he belongs in. The Cantina panel at Star Wars Celebration 2015 showed the audience that the actor's name is Isaac Grand. The photo of production notes lists 2 local bureaucrats, which was down from the original number of 3, and gives us their names, the second of which we will see when we get to the M's. Swilla Corey. This is one of 2 local girls in the cantina, and the easiest place to see this character is behind Obi-Wan after his fight at the bar. Debnoli. Although he sits pretty prominently at the front of the cantina, nothing much is known about this character. He wears a striped robe that looks like something out of an Old Testament play. We know now that he is not one of the 2 bureaucrats, but what category does he belong to? Farmer, perhaps? Damono Diomeli. This poor guy was called Little Aunt Beru for years by fans because the name was written on John Mallow's chart as a possible part for Gilda Cohen. Luckily, he finally got his official name at Star Wars Celebration in 2015. Dr. Cornelius Evazan. Several Cantina actors were hired through London's Ugly Models, an agency that specializes in unique people, and still does to this day. Alfie Curtis was one such actor, and here we can see him without the Dr. Evazan makeup. Here is his original listing in the Ugly Agency catalog. This original latex facial appliance still exists and is in the Kurtz Joyner archive. Here one is being applied by makeup artist Charles Parker. Partsofstarwars.com points out that Evazan's blaster pistol was made from a Rexam Favor submachine gun with 2 scopes and various other parts added. After a couple of half-hearted attempts, Hasbro finally gave us an excellent Evazan figure in the vintage collection. Greedo, I know how to say that one. The documentary Star Wars Begins notes that Stuart Freeborn based Greedo off of the Peapod alien, which Freeborn had designed for a TV commercial for frozen vegetables. As we have seen, there were 3 complete Martian costumes made for the film. All 3 were used for the cut Jabba scene, despite Greedo having been killed minutes before. Greedo's jumpsuit is made from a British racing uniform, with the top half being the very same type of jacket we've already discussed. In the American filmed scenes, not only is Maria de Aragon wearing Duros hands, but the orange vest that she wears is slightly different also. Greedo's snub-nosed blaster pistol is a modified Ruger Mark I Model T678 with additional items glued to it, including the barrel, which is made from model airplane engines. Its fate had long been wondered about until this author discovered quite by accident what happened to it. "I had the gun for years," Paul Blake told me in 2018. "My kids played with it. They actually broke it and I threw it away. And now I wish I hadn't. But nobody knew that more than 40 years on we would be sitting here talking about Star Wars all these years later." Greedo's mask is in the Kurtz Joyner archive, and a pair of Rhodian hands are in the collection of master designer and prop restoration expert Tom Spina. One of the Rhodian costumes was used in the Star Wars Holiday Special, as we will see in Chapter 9, and again in Return of the Jedi as a character named Beto. After the initial Kenner action figure in 1978, Hasbro has produced several other Greedo figures over the years. Paul Blake said, "Every year, a new one of me comes out. They love me." Hetnikik and unnamed Jawas. There is at least one other Jawa in the cantina. When the scene begins, the camera pans across the room, revealing 2 pairs of glowing eyes on the right side of the screen. Also, there are 2 more Jawas on their way in when Han Solo is leaving, so that's probably 4. Jenny. Like the first local girl, the second is tough to spot in the cantina, but she is there, sitting with one of the other Rhodians. In the Lost Cut version, she is sitting with Han Solo and is even seen kissing him. She is still there when Chewbacca brings Obi-Wan and Luke to Han's table, and Han has to ask her to leave. This photo is not only a very good picture of this character in color, but on the right side you can see a couple of unmasked spacemen in the back. Danik Jericho. This alien is very easy to spot as he stands at the very front of the bar. The panel at Star Wars Celebration 2015 revealed that the actor playing the Smoker also came from the Ugly Agency. It seems very unlikely that in modern times an action figure would be produced that included a hookah as an accessory, even if it's a space hookah, and actually would appear on store shelves, but it happened in 2005. Hide the children. Cabe. This cute little guy is hardly tall enough to reach the bar, and he squeaks in desperation as the bartender hands him a drink. He looks friendly, but perhaps that wasn't always the case. As we saw in Chapter 1, early versions of the script refer to one of Luke's attackers as being a rodent, and this is retained even up to the novelization and final script, where there are still 3 attackers. Even if you think this description could refer to the Ranat alien, you have to admit neither one of them would have made as formidable an adversary as Walrus Man. Both Cabe and the Rat Alien's hands were reused from the 2001 A Space Odyssey ape costumes, which Stuart Freeborn had also created, and this was a time saver for his team. The original mask can be seen today at sciencefictionarchives.com. Cabe has been immortalized twice in Hasbro plastic, the first time in a 2-pack with Muftak, which was a Kenner exclusive, and the second time in a 2-pack with Nabron Leeds, which was sold in stores in 2006. Herchek and Saitor Kalfas. You're killing me. Another fantastic alien design from Stuart Freeborn, the Sorens as they would come to be known, are said to be cousins. The one named Saitor is a female. They stand close together near the end of the bar where they won't miss seeing anyone who happens to come through the front door. One of the Sauron masks was repurposed into the bounty hunter Bossk for The Empire Strikes Back, and the other was used again in Return of the Jedi as a background alien in Jabba's palace, seen here on the sail barge. The untouched mask still exists and is owned by a participant of sciencefictionarchives.com. A fantastic action figure was produced by Hasbro, but for some reason they went all Bossk with the eyes and made them golden, which doesn't even match the artwork on the card, so you'll have to repaint them if you value accuracy in your Cantina diorama. Kidik-Keedkak. Okay, this name is ridiculous. I get that they're going for the sound an insect makes, but somebody somewhere is laughing at you when you try to say it. This alien is hidden in the very back of the room on the right side of the bar, and was operated from within by Jack Purvis like a giant puppet. The original color of the creature was bright green, although any Hasbro action figure is always brown. Taus Ka. This alien is the counterpart to Mosep, and he sits on the left side of the cantina at the table that Lisub Serlin is standing in front of. For a while there was some confusion over which alien was Mosep, but the release of the Hasbro action figure finally settled that question. Most old-school fans know this alien as Jabba the Hutt from the original Marvel Comics. We will see this Hutt with 1T in Chapter 10 when we look at Cantina Comics. Both Nimbinil aliens can be seen walking the streets of Mos Eisley, distinguishable by their hair. In these photos, you can see both of them at the same time. Also note that R2-D2 is in two places at once, which is a clever filming trick that you don't pick up on in the finished product. Garuf Lafaux. There isn't much to say about this guy other than the fact that he runs and finds the nearest sand troopers when trouble breaks out, prompting them to enter the cantina. He was played by stuntman Peter Diamond, who also played the attacking Tusken Raider and a handful of other smaller roles in the film. Nabran Leeds. This four-armed Plutonian is one of the most conspicuous aliens in the cantina, besides being in two places at once at the start of the scene, as we have talked about. This alien wears another British racing suit, and the gas mask, manufactured by Avon Technical Products, was World War II surplus. Apparently, it cannot breathe oxygen, so you really have to wonder how it's able to enjoy the drink in his hand. The original mask and a pair of hands reside in the collection of Tom Spina, as well as the packing crates for both Nabran Leeds and a Snaggletooth. A Nabran Leeds action figure has been issued on two different occasions, but wouldn't he make an awesome Black Series figure? Erik Johansson. Now we play the difficult game of trying to fill some of the incomplete categories with some of the more obscure extras in the cantina. This gentleman stands beside the Tonica sisters, and he wears a white or light-colored tunic shirt that is similar to other citizens of Tatooine, therefore he could be a local farmer. Some fans believe that he should be given the name Erik Johansson because of a story from the 1995 book Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. His decipher card says Moisture Farmer. Local Ugly Man. In the Lost Cut, this guy is hanging out with a snaggletooth named Takil. In the finished cantina scene, he is easier to see standing behind Obi-Wan after the incident involving Walrus Man, looking on in amazement. The panel at Star Wars Celebration of Anaheim in 2015 revealed the actor's name, who it was thought probably came from the Ugly Agency. Local Ugly Man. Again revealed because of the Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim, it was noted that this extra of various British films agreed to shave his mustache to appear in the film, but, as you can see from the photo, he showed up for filming without having done so. This image is from the Lost Cut, as this guy is not very identifiable in the finished edit of the scene. This is the only one of the four local ugly men who does not seem to have any sort of prosthetic nose or facial appliance. Yurka Mig. Bless that 2015 Star Wars Celebration Cantina panel, because when they unearthed this actor's name in the production notes, we now know that he is actually a bureaucrat. He is most noticeable when Han Solo throws the bartender a coin as he's exiting, and it's hard to miss his specially dyed British racing jacket. Interestingly, you can spot this very same jacket on a couple of different extras in the streets of Mos Eisley. As it turns out, George Stock was another actor who played more than one part in Star Wars. He is also one of the robed rebel leaders at the end of the film, standing in the background in the scene where the heroes receive their medals, but virtually impossible to see in the finished film. Well, I was afraid of that. It's simply too much goodness for one video to contain. Tune in next time for We interrupt this video with breaking news. As this very video was being completed, Hasbro, out of the blue, made a surprise announcement that the next HasLab crowd-funded product for the Vintage Collection would be a modular and movie-accurate playset of the Mos Eisley Cantina for the first time in recorded history. And hey, somebody over there finally figured out that there are no bar stools in the Cantina. What's more, not only does it come with a brand new sculpt of the bartender, but also, for the first time anywhere, a day that fans were told would never come. Actual action figures of the Tonica sisters. It finally got worked out. And for completeness, some bonuses can be reached. If 11,000 backers are reached, also included will be a new Greedo. I guess so. If they reach 14,000 backers, we get a brand new super articulated Neighborin' Leeds. And if the rather unlikely number of 17,000 backers is reached, the Wolfman with the light-up eyes. By the time we reach Chapter 8 for our look at Cantina playsets, we should know if this project has become a reality, so we will keep you posted. I don't have to tell you where I stand on this one. Sure, $500 is expensive, but so was the sail barge and that got made. I've already bought mine. We now return to our regularly scheduled video already in progress. The rest of the Elstree Cantina customers, and we'll save you a booth.